Hello chess Neurites. In today's video, we'll take a look at a game between Arjun Erigaisi and VE from the Chessable Masters 2025. Arjun unleashed some phenomenal opening preparation, and what's impressive about that is how perfectly that suited the time control of the event, because it is just 10 minutes with no increment, and that allowed him to put immediate pressure on VE. So let's dive into the game. So Arjun had white pieces and e4 e5 happened. Arjun went for the usual knight f3. We replied with knight c6. Arjun went for the royal opus and we went for knight f6. He is ready for the Berlin defense by making this move. So castle was played, knight takes e4. This is all known theory. Then d4 was played by Arjun, knight d6, still following the theory. Now, in this position, the main move is bishop takes c6, then d takes c6, d takes e5, knight f5, queen takes d8, king takes d8. And this is the famous Berlin endgame. So the position is quite imbalanced. So black has the double bishop advantage, but white has the king side pawn majority of 4 versus 3. Black has these double pawns and the king is in the center. It's extremely rich endgame. And this was popularized by Kramnik against Kasparov in his World Championship match in 2000. So, but Arjun had something else in mind. So after knight d6, instead of playing bishop c6, he played bishop a4. So this was already a bit of a surprise for VE because this is not so popular move. But we played e4. This is still opening theory. So then Arjun replied with rook e1. So he's ready to play the position with down a pawn, but he has lead in the development. VE's king is still in the center, so he can continue. By the way, just before explain more about this game, if we had played e takes d4, capturing another pawn, but that increases the risk because his king is still in the center. Arjun can play something like c3, offering another pawn sacrifice. If we accepts it, then there is rook e1 check, bishop e7, knight takes c3. It seems like black is fine after castling. Black is 2 pawns up, but not so easy because there is knight d5. This bishop is under pressure. The king side is under pressure. Bishop f6. And there are some issues with bishop f4, knight takes c7 ideas. It's not that easy for black to play. So because of that reason, after bishop a4, we replied with e4. He's like, I don't want to exchange and open this file. It can create some problems for me. But of course, Arjun was prepared. So he played rook e1 in this position. Then bishop e7 was played. Arjun once again replied really fast with knight e5. Then b5 was played. This is all still theory actually. So very few games have been played, but both of the players knew it. Then bishop b3 was played. And then knight a5. So till here, some strong players have played some games in it, but in this position, Arjun unleashed his opening preparation because he played the next move in just 2 seconds. That surprised VE, that is bishop takes f7. He is actually ready to sacrifice this piece to weaken VE's king. Now, engine actually does not agree with this move. Engine actually gives advantage to black. And yes, if it was a classical game, Arjun would not have played this move because black would have more time to figure it out what to do against it. But as I mentioned earlier, we have to keep in mind the time control. That is a 10-minute game with no increment. So in this position, even though the sacrifice is not completely sound, but for VE to figure out all the intricacies of the position and figure the perfect way out, the best way out for dealing with Arjun's attack is going to be extremely tough. And that's why the practical aspect of this sacrifice, because of a quicker time control game, makes this a brilliant opening preparation by Arjun. So we of course took the bishop, then Arjun played knight takes f7, VE's king is weak, queen h5, improving the queen's position with a tempo. And by the way, VE has to be a bit careful about such ideas. So he went king f8. Then in this position, Arjun still in his opening preparation. He's developing the knight. He's like, okay, I'll get my pieces out and I'll try to target that king. Then in this position, we played queen e8. So now he's offering exchange of queens. There is no way Arjun is going to do that. He played queen takes b5, still in preparation, and so far 14 moves have happened, but Arjun has only used 13 seconds of his time. So and that's a huge time advantage, and the pressure that is there on VE because of the lack of development, because of the knight being slightly awkwardly placed, because of the king in the center is increasing by the move. Then VE played knight c6, he brought the knight back. Then in this position, rook takes e4 was played. The centralized rook putting more pressure on black. Then rook b8 was played. Arjun calmly brings the queen back to increase the pressure here. Then we plays queen f7. This position is already too much for him to handle. But one thing also that we have to remember is that Arjun also has just 10 minutes. So it's not going to be a perfect game from now onwards, but we'll see how he kept up the pressure. So he played d5 in this, still the best move in the position. And then after this, Arjun actually did not follow up with the best move, but it was still good enough to keep up the pressure. But let me explain what would have been the best move for Arjun. So the move would have been bishop d2, a very sneaky move, but the idea is very clear. He just wants to bring this rook, and then it would be a bit difficult for VE to handle Arjun's pressure on the king side. Let's say VE plays rook b4, exchanging the active rook. Arjun is not going to do that. The idea is to play simple, rook e1, and then in some cases rook f3 as well. Then if bishop f6, just rook e1, g6, then rook f3. There is this idea, there is this idea, there is this. It's too much for black to handle. So bishop d2 would have actually been a much more stronger move after black's knight d8. But Arjun played bishop f4. So the small problem now, if we compare with bishop f4 and bishop d2, is that after rook b4, as we saw in the earlier line, if the bishop was on d2, then Arjun would have the opportunity to avoid exchange of rooks. But now, since the bishop is here, he is not able to do so. But not a big problem. He still can win a pawn, so he still has the advantage, not as much as bishop d2, but still he is the one who is pushing. Now, he has 3 pawns for a piece, and VE's king is still weak. Then rook takes e4. He captured it with the queen to centralize the queen. Then d6 was played. He brought the rook on the open file. Bishop f5 was played. And then in this position, Arjun played queen b4, putting pressure on the pawn. Queen f6 was played. He centralized the knight. Then rook takes e4. By the way, rook f4 is a serious threat. So g5 was played by VE. Then Arjun played rook e3. He's like this. Now if you play g4, then I have queen takes g4 idea. So then in this position, knight f7 was played by VE. Now Arjun played rook e6, queen f5, c4, defending the pawn. By the way, Arjun hasn't blundered the checkmate because queen b1, there is rook e1 is still there. The queen is controlling this. So knight e5 was played. By the way, now the rook is disconnected. We should not be in so much of a rush that we blunder the mate. Of course, Arjun was not going to do that. He played no h3. He's like, let me create the escape square in this position for the king. Then knight d3 was actually played by VE. Now, the pressure was too much. See, already there is 3 pawns for the piece. The king is a bit weak. So it's tough for VE to defend this. And then he finally blunders. And then Arjun doesn't give him a chance to make a comeback. Now, he played queen b8 check in this position. King f7. Now, some of us would be like, oh yes, free rook. Let's go for it. No, we have to be cautious. This allows black to get away with a draw with perpetual checks. Because this, then king h2, queen f4 check. And white, despite having extra material, is not able to get away from the perpetual checks of black. So in this position, after queen b8 check, king f7, Arjun was not planning to take the rook, at least for now. He played rook takes e7 check. Precise calculation. So the idea in this position is that if king takes e7, then there's bishop d6 check. If king d7, then queen c7, so king d7, queen c7 check, king e8, queen e7 mate would be there. So if black plays something like king f7 in this position, then there is queen takes h8. And the key difference would be that the bishop is on this diagonal. So say if king f7 is played, queen takes h8, queen f2 check, and now the king is on h2. So because the bishop is on this diagonal, because Arjun had captured this pawn with a check, so now there is no queen f4 check, there is no perpetual. So that's really important to not allow black to get away with a draw. So then rook takes e7 check so that he can capture this pawn with a check. That's what his plan was. Then V in this position played king g6. He is also going to try his best. Once again, his plan is also pretty simple. If Arjun takes the rook, then this check and those perpetual checks will come and he will get away with a draw. But Arjun was not going to allow that to happen. He played rook e6 in this position. King h5 is not possible. G4 check and this is lost. And in this position, king g7, then queen takes a7. A really nice move actually, because not only is capturing the pawn, but he defends that pawn as well. Then rook f8 was played. Now Arjun is actually 5 pawns up in this position. He had sacrificed the piece in the opening for activity and now he's 5 pawns up. This is just too much. Then rook f7 was played. Arjun played queen d4 check. We had enough. This is just too much for him to handle. And then he resigned. So an excellent opening preparation by Arjun for the quicker time control format. It's really important to be able to put pressure on the opponent right from the beginning in such a thing, to take over the initiative, to not give opportunity to opponent to take the breathe and then stabilize. And then Arjun converted that advantage phenomenally into the win. So now he is in the semi-final of the Chessable Masters and let's hope for the best for him. And thanks everyone for joining and I'll see you in the next video.